And again, all reporters from various publications are in the courtroom. They're hearing it, they're seeing it. It's a court record. Bob LaChance gets up on the stand and says he was never afraid of me, and in fact, he was the one that was doing the assaulting. And that if anybody's the hero in this room, it's Jimmy Cozzolino. He actually said that. And that, and so on and so forth. And then we took a break. Then they came back and they they wanted to offer me a deal where if I pled guilty to discharge of a firearm in a non-residential structure, they would make it non-dangerous, non-repetitive, and that I would be probation eligible. And you have to understand, at this point, I'm looking at 8 to 20 years in prison, and with a wife and 4 children at home. And my youngest at that point was still 16, or my oldest was 16, my youngest was 8.
Still
That's not a good thing to be looking at. So I discussed it with my family, and it was agreed upon that I should probably take this deal because of the probation situation. Up until this point, the county didn't want to deal with us at all, but what had happened was they came out in deposition that when my attorney at the time brought up that these videotapes of the deposition were missing all this information. All these pieces were in the puzzle were gone, that had been erased, and that where were the backup tapes?
Oh yeah.
In depositions, one of the detectives says, "Oh yeah, we have plenty of backup tapes." Well, what happened was when we were in court, we requested those backup tapes, and now all of a sudden there weren't any. But he had already gone on record saying there was, but now there isn't.
It just keeps rolling.
It just kept snowballing on them. So they decided to offer me this deal, and again, I discussed it with my family, and you know, we just, looking hindsight, it was a big mistake. But I said, okay, we'll do it. And I pled guilty to the discharge of a non-residential structure. It was non-dangerous, non-repetitive, but it was a felony 3. And so then what happens, it's great, they leave me out on bond, and they set the sentencing date. So they get a probation report done, and Joe Arpaio writes this incredible letter telling the court that I am a dangerous, psychotic individual, that I have threatened to kill him, that I'm an assassin, and that I should be given 8 years in prison.
Recommendation from the sheriff.
Right.
Ooh.
So naturally, we all went, whoa. So we tried to withdraw my plea. We wanted to go back to trial. No, this isn't happening, because this is a setup for sure.
Yeah. And
we went in front of Judge Aceto, and we didn't, at the time, didn't realize, but Judge Aceto is in Joe's pocket.
All right.
So he refused the motion and wasn't going to let me out and go back to trial. So we said, okay. So we go to my sentencing, and the funny thing is Bobby Ayala, a candidate for sheriff, gets up and speaks in my behalf. Bob LaChance, the original attacker in this whole situation, speaks on my behalf. Melody Nordman speaks in my behalf. Pearl Wilson.
What more does it take?
Pearl Wilson,
who's
Linda Seville, Jimmy Seville's sister, that, you know, the situation with Jimmy Seville where he was set up as supposedly a bomb threat on Joel, which was all fabricated by the sheriff's department. They kept that boy in prison or county jail for almost 3 years over that, until he was acquitted and finally sued and won multi-million dollars from. But at any rate, all these people went to my sentencing and said, "This is nuts. This is crazy. How can you do this to this man and his family?" Well, Judge Aceto didn't care. He gave, I mean, I guess he did care, because he could have given me, 8 years in prison for just the discharge of a firearm. But he sentenced me to 4 months, ironic, he sentenced me to 4 months in the county jail on the work furlough program.
Okay.
Which means I can go home every day, go to work, but I have to come back and spend my nights in the tents.
And the tent too.
Right. Yeah. Nice.
Special.
Yeah, especially.
Yeah.
You know, and this is in the winter time, so it's out there, and you're wearing 3 pair of sweats and 3 jackets and boots just to try to stay warm.
And the pink underwear and socks don't really help much.
Because they don't. because they give you one blanket and it's 20 degrees outside kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
So I'm in the situation I'm in tents and I'm doing my work furlough program. And what's funny is now I'm not even in there on a drug-related charge, but about every 2 or 3 days, I'm being called into the office when I come back from work, and I'm being drug tested and alcohol tested. And I'm clean. Every test, 10, 12 tests, I'm clean.
You know better.
I don't do drugs. So all of a sudden, one day I come back from work and I'm called in to do this test. And so I pee in the cup, right? And they do their little thing in their little test kit. And then the detention officer Brandt, disappears in the back room. And he's gone for probably 20, 30 minutes. And he comes out of the back room and he tells me, "You're getting rolled up. You're dirty with methamphetamine." And I'm looking at him and my first reaction as I looked at him and said, "Bullshit. I want to be tested again."
Good.
Because I know better. Come on. No. And I'm looking at the sergeant and I'm saying, "Sergeant, you know this is bullshit. You know it. I know it. I want to be tested again." So then they make me sit there and wait, and they call some lieutenant in. And he says, "No, we're not testing me. He's dirty." So they roll me up and they throw me in the hole. Now I'm going to lose my job because once you're in the hole, that's where you do the remainder of your time. And I got 90 days left, which means I lose my job, I lose my house, which is all their goal anyway, is to take as much away from me as they can. So about 5 hours that I'm in the hole, probation department comes and pulls me out. And I says, "What's going on?" They put me in a car, they handcuffed me, put me in a car, and they're driving me somewhere. And I'm saying, what's going on here, guys? And they said, "We got a call from a sergeant that didn't like what happened and told us we should test you again."
Wow.
And when you read the stories, the trial and the false positive in the New Times, you'll know.
It'll tell the story.
Because it's all documented.
All right.
So they take me to task. They test me. They didn't give me the results. They take me back to jail, and they said, "Well, we'll have the results in a couple of days, and we'll let you know." Because I'm asking them, "Well, I'm going to lose my job. I'm not dirty. I'm not doing drugs. This isn't right, because you're going to cost me my house. I've got a family out there. What do? Just move into the street?"